So this is G485 homework booklet question 15. Well worth listening to this in conjunction with the answer to 14, which is also about X-rays and image intensifiers and contrast media. So in part A, we're asked to describe the use of image intensifiers and contrast media when X-rays are used to produce images of the internal body structure. And we get the pencil mark question here. We're being asked to make clear how the appearance of the image is linked to the technique, so we've got to make sure we've done that at some point. So first of all, I've got a 5-mark question. I think, oh my lord, 5 marks, how do I work out what 5 marks they want? But actually, although it's only describe, which doesn't split the question, we are being asked to describe 2 different things, image intensifiers and contrast media. So I'm essentially looking at 2 3-mark questions. If I treat it as 2 3-mark questions, hopefully I've got something spare and can shore up my getting 4 marks. Sorry, 5 marks. The other thing I've got to do is work out what they're talking about when they're saying image intensifiers here. We've got are they asking about image intensifier screens? Are they asking about image intensifier tubes? They're not always very consistent with that. If I read on to part B, I can work it out because it's telling me that they don't want anything that uses the photoelectric effect. And obviously we are using the photoelectric effect if we're talking about image intensifying tubes. So that does allow me to work out that they're talking about screens. We're going to go on and talk about CAT, but that's not going to impact on how I'm looking at this question. So going back up, we've got, first of all, I've taken a chunk of time to look at the image intensifying screen and then at the contrast media. So intensifiers used because most X-rays would otherwise simply pass through the film. The intensifying screen converts X-ray photons into many visible light photons. They were very insistent on the use of the word photons here, which I think is good practice. Because if we talk about it in wave terms, it's hard to get the idea that we're getting the increased brightness. So one X-ray photon, many visible light photons. Those visible light photons obviously are much more strongly absorbed by the film, and that means that we can use a lower X-ray exposure for the same brightness of the image, and that reduces the risks associated with ionizing radiation. If we go on and talk about contrast media, we can mention either iodine or iodine or barium being used as a contrast media. The point is the contrast media have got a high Z and so a high attenuation coefficient, and they can be either injected or ingested into the body. And what that means is we end up with an image that shows the shape or the outline of the certain soft tissue that otherwise wouldn't show in a standard X-ray. How have we gone about answering this? Well, it says that we've got to either the appearance of the image, so same brightness with lower exposure, they counted as being good for that pencil mark. The high Z, which can improve the contrast for the Z mark, and showing the outline for the pencil, not for the Z mark, for the pencil mark, and showing the outline also counted for the pencil mark. So that's the big chunk up front. Even if you hate that, but remember by splitting it down, it's just a couple of 2-mark questions. Students suggest the image intensifier uses the photoelectric effect. Explain why that's incorrect. The point is that the X-ray photon is producing many visible light photons rather than in the photoelectric effect. It's electrons being released. And that's the difference. The problem with that, of course, is that if you had read the question as being image intensifying tube, that does use the photoelectric effect. I just hope they won't make that mistake with the paper again. And we're then explaining how the production of the CAT scan differs from a simple X-ray and describe the advantages of CAT scans compared with X-ray imaging. Again, they could have given you that as another 4 or 5 mark question, but on this occasion they've actually broken it down into the two. So we've got the fact that a simple X-ray is a one-direction shadow picture. With CAT scan, we're making measurements from many angles, and then that image then is constructed by the computer from all the data that's collected. And then in terms of advantages, we can get a 3D image from the CAT scan. We get better soft tissue contrast because of all that extra data we're gathering by taking measurements from lots and lots of directions. And obviously once we've collected that as 3D data within the computer, we can rotate that image in 3D around any axis we want and pick up any image we want to from that. So that's G484 homework booklet question 15.